Hi, I'm John Zarella in Cocoa Beach. Seeing a little bit of the weather deteriorating today, some rain showers moving in, a little bit of squally weather, but that has not deterred people from coming down to the beach to watch the surf.
You just see what the surf is like. The kids want to experience, the atmosphere. They're excited. They're shy back there. They're just hiding back there. But yeah.
What about, were you guys here a couple years ago for Irma?
Yes, we are here for Irma and Matthew.
And Matthew.
Matthew was the main one that was supposed to land over here. We watched the radars wobbling a little bit, shifting northeast. We decided to stay. A lot of our friends, they went out of town.
So are you comfortable? Are you staying this time or are you moving out?
We're still monitoring. I think we're going to stay. There's a 30% chance that we're going to be leaving. 70% chance of staying. So
you're pretty comfortable, at least at this point, that the storm's going to stay offshore?
You're never truly comfortable, but you pretty much wish that it does stay offshore.
Nature's protection against hurricanes are these dunes. These are sea grapes, and over here you've got the sea oats, and that will help to stop erosion. But with Dorian is still expected to be some significant beach erosion all along the Florida coast. I'm John Zarella for My Radar in Cocoa Beach, Florida.
Okay, I think I've got the audio fixed, you guys. Let me know if you don't hear me. I didn't have my mic turned on, so I think it's there. If you can hear me, let me know. Give me a thumbs up or tell me you can't hear me. But I'm going to keep going until I hear otherwise. I see my meters, so I think we're good. So let me go ahead and dive right into this and get some of this unpacked for you. So some of the questions that I've been getting on Facebook have been, why isn't Dorian turning? Why is this hurricane stalled? Well, there's been a complete collapse of the steering currents for Dorian, and I'm going to show you that in just a second. But it's been really interesting to see how this hurricane has played out over the last 24 to 36 hours. And as we look at that infrared, it's still powerful, extremely powerful Category 4 hurricane, and it's still unleashing some pretty nasty weather across parts of Florida. In fact, let me show you this real quick. This was some video from Aaron Jajak, our storm chaser, from earlier today over in Brevard County, and you can see the nasty winds there as there was some outer bands that were coming onshore with Dorian, and we're expecting, of course, a lot more of that to play out as we head into the coming days, and we'll just see how that all verifies, you guys. But it oh, thanks Sandy for letting me know you can hear me. I wasn't sure, but anyway, the other video I wanted to show you was this. Across Brevard County, southbound on I-95, all of these crews that have been getting ready to get in place for areas that will be without power. We are expecting there to be power outages in Florida, even with a glancing blow from Dorian. I do expect to see a fair amount of power outages once Dorian starts to move. So that hasn't happened yet. Still waiting on that to happen, but we do anticipate that will be something that will start happening in the very near future, and probably sometime tomorrow. So what happens is the fact that Dorian didn't move today, all of the timing that we talked about in terms of Dorian impacting Florida went out the window. So if you're anticipating really bad weather to come across Florida tomorrow, you kind of got to back it up a little bit, because the hurricane didn't move at all today, stuck and stationary over Grand Bahama, where they continue to have devastating impacts from this hurricane. You have to remember that it's been sitting over Grand Bahama for almost 20 hours, and that unleashing Category 4, at one point Category 5 winds, now Category 4 winds, and still that dangerous eye wall just sitting right over Grand Bahama. Now Freeport is down here, and we've already seen a fair amount of video. We've posted a lot of it on our social media pages, so check us out on Twitter and Facebook, because there's a fair amount of people that have been able to feedback video, and the storm surge there has been easily 18 feet. The other thing I wanted to point out to you guys is the eye wall has almost doubled in size since this thing got organized. So early on, when this was a young hurricane, the eye itself was about 12 miles across. Now, because it has gone under some eye wall recycles, that generations that can elongate and make the vortex or the center of circulation actually larger. And that's exactly what we've seen with Dorian. That does not mean the wind field is longer. That means that the actual eye is interacting with more land, in this case over the Bahamas. So again, that's really scary stuff. And I can kind of show that here in this infrared imagery. This is some 3D resolution that we got from GO-16. And look at this as it rotates around. You can see those really deep reds, and they look like puffy clouds, almost like cotton balls. But that is intense wind rotating to the center of this Category 4 hurricane. And that black you see there on this 3D imagery is actually the northeastern quadrant. That's where those winds of 130 miles are locked up in. And it's a very valuable resource that we have, the GO-16, that offers out this high resolution radar that we can, imagery, infrared imagery, actually that's visible, not infrared, that offers out this imagery that we can use to kind of look at some in-depth analysis of this hurricane, which has been textbook on radar and even on satellite. So here's a look at the watches and warnings. Those didn't change either because, again, Dorian hasn't moved. Still anticipating these winds to get very close to the state of Florida. And people have also been asking me an awful lot of when is it going to turn? And we do expect to see it turn soon, as I mentioned, probably as soon as tomorrow. But we said that yesterday. So this has been an extremely tough hurricane to forecast. There are no forecasting tools in place that can dictate when Dorian is going to start to pick back up, other than there is this trough that I'm going to show you here in a second that's going to start to pull Dorian north. And here's a closer look at the raggedness of that eye. So see how it's just not real cylindrical, or it's not real circular, I should say. Yesterday and the days before that, it was really, really tightly wound and very well organized. So it's still going to be, and look at this. Wow, this has even changed since I looked at this about 10 minutes ago. So a much more ragged eye. Look what's going on here. So I would expect to see more weakening on the next update from the Hurricane Center. So see how, let me actually draw it so we can actually look at it a little easier. See how we got like some entrainment here of some, looks like to be some dry air, and then it just kind of goes in this presentation. This is not, it's kind of flat there on the north side of the hurricane. That's because it's been interacting with land for so long, and it's been dealing with that upwelling. So it's pulling colder ocean from this floor of the ocean and pulling it into the center of the circulation, and that colder upwelling sea surface temperatures can help really break down the core vortex of Dorian. So I'm really relieved to see a breakdown in this eye. I would not be surprised to see more weakening, and that's of course what we want. Let's get it weaker. It's still officially a Category 4 with winds at 130 miles an hour, but the pressure is up 950. That's even changed from this last hour. It's gone up 4 millibars. So I do expect to see probably the wind to be knocked down here, maybe at the 2 a.m. update, or maybe certainly by the 5. And here's a look at the path. Again, that didn't change too much because, again, Dorian hasn't moved. So the only thing that really changed was the intensity track that actually reduced Dorian's intensity on days 2 and 3. It was expected to be a Category 4 at its closest point to Florida, but now could be still a very major hurricane, Category 3. As you look at the product here, the extended forecast for the next 5 days, some things jump out at me. So the longest duration that Dorian will be interacting with any part of the United States likely will be the state of Florida. It's going to take it about 36 hours to get from South Florida up into the Georgia area. And then we start to see an increase in the forward motion. So it goes from off the coast of Georgia up to South Carolina in just 24 hours. And then look at this major jump from Thursday off the coast of North Carolina all the way up off into Nova Scotia by 9 p.m. on Saturday. So it really books quickly. And another reason why I think this trough is going to get Dorian and move it northeast is because of the rapid movement of this track. The only time you see this type of rapid movement is when there's a trough of low pressure or a cold front coming off the coast of the United States that picks up tropical cyclones and kicks them out to sea. So I really do feel that we're going to see some rapid changes in this hurricane, getting it away from the United States once it starts moving. Here's a look at the probability of the winds. This is an estimation of 40-mile-per-hour winds or greater. You can see that it toggled on about 9 cities across the state of Florida. So a good chunk of South Florida, pretty much in the clear that you guys are not going to be getting winds greater than 40 miles an hour. But as we zoom into Central and North Florida, probability is pretty good that you're going to get tropical storm force winds at some point once Dorian starts to move. So the probabilities were around 50 to 60%, and that's why a big chunk of interior Central Florida and North Florida is under a tropical storm warning. This is also the GFS modeling that indicates the chance of what the winds could look like. Some areas, Orlando expecting in the neighborhood of 30, 35 miles an hour. Same thing along the coast. Of course, some higher winds up in Savannah near hurricane force winds. But again, I do think Brevard County and down into Indian River and St. Lucie, Martin, I do think you all will get some hurricane force winds on the current path because it's the size of that hurricane has expanded. So even though we're on the weaker side of the hurricane, I still think we're going to get some of those hurricane force winds for sure. Storm surge, the areas that are in the darker pink, you have a chance of a 4 to 7 foot storm surge. Could be life-threatening, you all. 7-foot storm surge is almost to the roof in a traditional house that's 8 feet high. So if you don't evacuate and you're told to and you get a 7-foot wall of water, that is a life-threatening scenario. Possibility of 2 to 4 feet and the surge that's shaded in pink. So that right now that's currently parts of Georgia and into South Carolina. I would likely see those extended as we head into the next couple of days. So here's the storm surge potential. I got to really zoom this closely, but I'm going to kind of scoot right up into Brevard County because that's where we see probably where Dorian will be one of its closest points to the state of Florida. So the storm potential there, again, the storm surge, wall of water, 1 to 3 feet. But as I scoot up the coast here, get into Volusia, look what's going on over here in Pearson. We're still seeing a surge way inland. That's because lakes that feed into the Atlantic that get a direct onshore flow from the Atlantic are going to have an increase in water and in some cases flooding. So if you live in these areas and you've been here for any length of time, you know that you're going to see some flooding. Anytime we have a hurricane that's coming close by, the St. Johns, this is the St. Johns River, major river that goes along the eastern part of the state of Florida. Also, I expect to see some minor flooding there. And then as we get up into Georgia, same thing, 1 to 3 feet. Yesterday, this product was showing 6 to 9 feet potential in some of these areas, but that's because Dorian weakened today and still hasn't moved. So that storm surge product might be modified once Dorian starts moving. There's a look at the watches and warnings across the state. Pretty much all of the coastline of Florida is under some type of watch or warning. Hurricane warning up for the big chunk from Palm Coast down to Jupiter. Hurricane watch up for parts of Georgia, South Carolina, and then we've got our tropical storm watches and warnings down towards the south. And I don't anticipate those changing either, you guys, because again, until we get some forward momentum, then we really don't have anything to report on, other than we are getting a fair amount. Look at all those storm reports. Those are hurricane reports of tropical storm force winds that have moved in all of those areas that you see along the east side of Florida and even by Fort Myers. So we're still getting some impacts from Dorian, even though the fact that hurricane is not moving. All right, here's a look at Hurricane Andrew and Hurricane Matthew. I had a lot of questions over the last couple of days about Andrew and what Andrew's path was. So Andrew was a Cape Verde hurricane, came all the way across from the coast of Africa, straight across the Atlantic, and moved right in, of course, plowed right into South Florida. Matthew came in from the Atlantic as well, and then curved right very near the state of Florida. Floyd was another one. I'm going to put Floyd on this map as well, because I think of all the scenarios, Matthew is probably the closest in similarities to what Dorian is forecast to do. But none of us like to compare hurricanes because they're all different. But in terms of a paralleling hurricane, it does look like that's going to be the same thing for Dorian as was Matthew. Okay, so why am I so confident about the turn? Why do I feel that that's going to go on, and why is Dorian stalled? Here's our map. So this is the water vapor. It shows the amount of moisture in the atmosphere. And we got two things going on. We've got a ridge here that's kind of dipped down towards the south. We have another ridge of high pressure here. Here's our deep trough, really digging down, firmly entrenched. It's kind of eroding away here, but really entrenched in the atmosphere. So as it pulls south, it's going to actually draw Dorian north. So it's just got to get a bit closer before we can actually see that verified. But we've already seen some of the indications that's happening because Dorian stalled. And oftentimes when we see hurricanes stall like this, that does mean that a turn is happening. We expected that to happen today. We also expected Dorian to start moving today, but until that happens, this timing of this product, the wind radii, is also going to be a little off course as well. But you get a general sense that we're definitely going to see some of those tropical storm force winds all across central Florida, and then of course into Georgia and South Carolina and North Carolina after that. And then one last product here I'm going to look at here. This is the modeling, the latest run from tonight. Big tight cluster again towards the left of that one outlier, very much in alignment with what the Hurricane Center thinks is going to happen. And the key messaging has been we want everyone in that storm surge area that is under mandatory evacuations to leave because of the unknown certainties. We've seen Dorian wobble a little bit, and that wobbling has been a big problem for forecasting the ultimate movement of Dorian. So just a bobble of 2 hours towards the left, towards Florida, could be a big different scenario, and then back towards the north could be a big scenario change for a lot of folks. So that's why you just have to prep and get it in your mindset that you're going to have to do that in order to stay safe. And then Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, again, everyone needs to be prepping and be ready to go, and tropical watches extend all the way up into South Carolina. All right, let me put the infrared back on real quick. And for some reason, my chat is locked up, so I can't see what you guys, if there's any questions. It doesn't look like there's a whole bunch of people in the on this page right now. But if you have a question and you want me to answer it, I would love to answer it for you. Now, let me see if I can get this to work, because it seems like it's frozen. And in the meantime, I can try and answer some stuff tomorrow. Yeah, it's still. Oh, no, it's not locked up. Okay. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for now, you guys. If you have any questions I can answer, let me know. Let me finish with our pages here. This is where you can follow us on social media. If you didn't know where we were, you can follow us on Facebook at /MyRadar. Twitter, of course, is MyRadar Wex. Instagram is MyRadar. And we're, of course, right here on YouTube at MyRadar as well. And if you haven't subscribed, we'd love to see you subscribe as well. Okay, that's going to do it for me, you guys. It's 12:25 on this Labor Day. I hope you have a great night, and we'll be back tomorrow.
Continuing hurricane coverage on My Radar.